Hey guys, how's it going? Good to see ya, and welcome to my video on Baby Driver. So I've been wanting to do a Baby Driver video for a super long time, and I just never really got around to it. But now that I broke my collarbone, this is the perfect time. So this film is directed by Edgar Wright, and he's most well known for Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, as well as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Actually, not a lot of people even know that he directed Scott Pilgrim, but a lot of people like that movie, including me. I think that movie's awesome. But I wasn't personally like a huge fan of Shaun of the Dead, and I've never seen Hot Fuzz. I guess when I saw Shaun of the Dead, I just didn't really appreciate the whole parody of a zombie movie thing. But yeah, I was a huge fan of Scott Pilgrim and all the kind of stylized directing that goes on in that movie. I was really super excited to see Baby Driver, and I didn't really know much about this film going into it. I knew that Jon Hamm was going to be in it, and I knew that Kevin Spacey was going to be in it, and Jon Bernthal, who I really loved as the Punisher. So firstly, I just want to give you guys a quick summary of some of the story and themes in this movie. And then I just want to talk about some of the things that I really liked in this movie. Then obviously we're going to go into some of the stuff that I didn't like. And we're going to close it off with some spoiler talk. So what is this film about? Well, in this movie you have our character, Baby, played by Ansel Elgort. And he's sort of been forced into a life of crime by Kevin Spacey's character named Doc, who's like this crime boss. And I guess the idea is that Baby, when he was really young, was caught stealing some stuff from Kevin Spacey. And then Kevin Spacey ends up forcing Baby to drive some of these getaway missions for him. And that sort of ends up being his life. But this movie sort of picks up where Baby has done what is supposedly his last mission for Doc. And he ends up falling for this girl named Deborah. He's sort of interested in her and kind of sees her as the future for his life now that he's done working for Doc. But it turns out that Baby is such a good driver that Doc just really doesn't want to let him go. So Baby ends up reluctantly going on these heists, and the movie sort of becomes him trying to get out of this life of crime and run off with Deborah. So one of the things that I actually totally loved about this movie is this movie's gimmick. So Baby, our protagonist, was actually in a car accident as a young child, and he has tinnitus, so he always listens to music. And since the movie is sort of from his perspective, what we end up is getting a lot of scenes that are synced up to music perfectly. And this is actually a really cool, unconventional technique. I mean, music is always used in movies, but there's not a lot of movies that aren't musicals that I've seen incorporate music in this way, and I thought it was really amazing. I actually watched an interview with Edgar Wright where he talked about how he wrote this movie and how he incorporated music into it. And he sort of described the process and that he had all of these tracks picked out before he even started to film the movie. Before he even wrote the script, he had most of the songs picked out, and with that in mind, he was able to sort of write all of the scenes around the songs. So what you get in this movie is actual entire sequences that are planned to incorporate this music, and you have the full track of the music playing over the scene. And what actually kind of adds to it even more is that Baby is engrossed in this music, and he can't actually drive if the music isn't right. So he will stop, pull over the car, and he will reset the song and play it over if he has to. I really loved a lot of the characters in this movie, although they're sort of one-note characters. There's kind of one thing about them that really makes them who they are, and there's not really so much depth to these characters. But they all serve their purpose in the story, and I can't say that these characters are bad. I mean, I was entertained by all of them. Jamie Foxx does this really good job as this character Bats. He's pretty intimidating and a total psycho. Jon Hamm actually really stands out in this movie as a compelling character, and he has a pretty interesting character turn near the end. The character Darling, played by some sexy chick, Eiza Gonzalez. She's pretty funny in this movie, and she has this sort of compassionate thing towards Baby where a lot of the other guys are kind of hard on him and suspicious of him. She always treats him pretty nicely. I thought that Lily James did a really good job as Deborah, even though she is also a really one-note character. But you can definitely see why Baby is infatuated with her and attracted to her, especially the time that she shows up in his life, sort of offering him a new life. And I guess kind of my big point of this video is that when I say that a lot of these characters are one note, I don't even really mean that that's a bad thing. Because the whole idea is that Baby is in this realistic, grimy world of crime, and he's romanticizing about this sort of 1950s idealized type of situation with Deborah, and it's he's fallen in love, so he's being a real idealistic guy about everything, and the movie sort of reflects that. not only with its tone, but also with these broadly drawn characters. So yeah, now that we've heaped all this praise on this movie, let's kind of talk about some of the things I didn't like and maybe criticize this movie a bit. So one thing that sort of struck me in this movie as being maybe not a bad decision, but a bit weird, there are some choices that these characters make that are pretty out of left field and really don't seem to reflect how like a real person would do stuff. And I think that that does like tie back into this sort of idealistic tone that the movie's kind of adopting. Okay, and now for some spoilers. So the way that the plot plays out, there's two major character turns. Basically some stuff goes awry during one of their heists, and Jon Hamm's girlfriend, Darling, ends up getting shot, and she ends up dying, and Jon Hamm's character ends up blaming Baby Driver for her death. So then he sort of becomes the real villain of this movie, and he's the one that really wants to stop Baby from getting away from his life of crime and getting away with Deborah, because he feels that Baby took the love of his life away from him, so why should Baby be able to be happy? And another big surprise is that it actually turns out to be Doc, Kevin Spacey's character, who sort of saves the day in the end. What ends up happening is that Kevin Spacey's character, Doc, sacrifices himself to kill Jon Hamm's character, saving Baby and allowing him to run off with Deborah. And right before he does that, he actually says that he's been in love before. So I view this as him buying into that like idealistic 1950s romantic view of the world that Baby and Deborah both have in this movie, and he actually lets them get away. And that's a really cool character turn for him. It was pretty unexpected, and I think that would have been really the best ending for this movie. It kind of trails off into a couple other endings, but that moment was really good. So yeah, overall, this movie is totally awesome. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's kind of the type of movie that you will want to see in theaters with like good picture and a good sound system. So really what I'm saying here, guys, is this is definitely worth your $13. And yeah, just one last kind of Easter egg for this movie that really shows you that the filmmakers built a believable and complete world with this film. The fact that Baby Driver has like all of these pairs of sunglasses and iPods and stuff like that, it's kind of played like this throwaway joke in the movie, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense because he spent his whole life stealing cars. And what do people always leave in their cars? Sunglasses and iPods. So yeah, guys, I don't really give number scores to movies usually, and I'm not really going to do it this time. Unless you guys really want me to start doing that, but you can get a pretty good idea how I feel about the movie by what I say about the movie. And what I'm saying about this movie is good. It's a good movie. It might be my favorite movie of the year so far. Yeah, it kind of, from a certain perspective, might have some problems, but I think that you guys need to go and see Baby Driver right now, and you should also subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment down below telling me I'm great, telling me I suck, ring that bell, and I'll see you guys later. Ugh.